Excuse me. Alrighty, a very good afternoon. My name is Oliver Nathan from Africa People Advisory Group. I am the head of learning at Africa People Advisory Group, as well as an associate consultant. If you've been on our APAG HR Africa forum, you would have seen that I'm really quite busy and quite participative on that group. And what I'm so impressed to see is just how much participation and interest there has been in this particular topic. So we decided to put together a webinar to really help people to navigate some of the challenges with regards to workplace bullying and psychological safety, in particular, what it is that we as HR practitioners and as people practitioners more broadly can do to start to bridge the gap and to help the organization to resolve some of these issues in a constructive manner. So before I hand over to our speakers, I just wanted to say two quick things just with regards to our ground rules. We really encourage participation, but what we will ask you to do, please, is to just raise your hand if you'd like to say something or contribute to the discussion. And please, of course, feel free to pop something into the chat should you wish to contribute in that manner. And then lastly, just our request is for you to please just respect each other and respect maybe differing views that may come up. So with that, let me hand over straight to our speakers for today, Dr. Ngao Motsei, as well as Mr. Samkelo Blom. So first of all, Ngao, let me hand over to you to introduce yourself, followed by Samkelo. Thank you and enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Oliver, and good afternoon, everybody. I do see that there were comments on the chat that some people are not hearing, that they were asking about sound. So I think it's important that before we start, we make sure that everybody can hear us. So
I'm just popping something into the chat. If you are having sound issues, we ask that you leave and rejoin.
Okay, great. With that, thank you, Oliver. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's I'm very privileged and glad to see the amount of interest in this. Just very quickly, by way of introduction, I like to refer myself as a corporate humanitarian. Why corporate humanitarian? Because my big, hairy, audacious goal and my purpose, I see it as relieving suffering in organizations. And I have seen a lot of suffering, and this is also part of the reason why we are here today to talk about the suffering, specifically workplace bullying, and what it is not, and what we can do about it. So looking forward to the conversations. Thank you. Samkelo, over to you.
And Kosi, thank you very much, Ngao. Just before I introduce myself, you've been a style in introducing yourself. If I can ask those who have joined, can you please introduce yourself in the chat? Please indicate your name, your surname, and also which country you're joining us from. We've had people from Uganda, from Botswana, our sisters and brothers from Nigeria. Hey, Abuja. Hey, Lagos, we see you there. We also got people from South Africa. So please indicate your name and surname and which country you are from. If you from Uganda, Botswana, please greet us in your own language. So if you speak Swahili, please, if there's a dialect of that language, we really want to learn. So please greet us. And then for those who are coming from South Africa, I've not even mentioned, and yet you're already introducing yourselves. Please indicate what city or what town you are coming from in South Africa. If you're coming from Western Cape, please say your name and your surname, and then indicate which side is Table Mountain to you. Say west of Table Mountain, east of Table Mountain. Just that we want to know, because you always boast to us that you are in the Western Cape, you've got Table Mountain. So please indicate for us where you are. And then if you're coming from Joburg, please indicate which city in Joburg you're coming from. Yes, you've guessed it. The reason why you are asking people from Joburg to indicate where they're coming from, so that we can tell Joburg water City Power, where the problems are with regards to your water issues. So if you're coming from Joburg, tell us you're coming from Broma, from Kensington, and from all of that where you're coming from. My name is Samkelo, surname is Blom. I reside in the Western Cape. Table Mountain is everywhere I go. Even if I'm in Paarl, there's always a Table Mountain. To me, I'm a diversity and equity consultant. I will be facilitating this session with Ngao. Oliver, I can't see what's written in the chat. I hope people are introducing themselves. And Oliver, please check for me. Those in the Western Cape, are they telling us which side Table Mountain is? And our friends in Joburg, those are coming from Gqeberha. There is no Port Elizabeth. Coming from Gqeberha, also please indicate that as well. What are you seeing in the chat, Oliver, before I continue?
I see we've got a lovely spread of people from all over the continent. I see that Kerry Canestra did mention she was from Cape Town, but she didn't say which side of Table Mountain she was on.
Excellent. No, thank you very much. We've got about an hour, so we will just start right away. This book is dedicated to the targets of bullying in the workplace, those who've had to endure the wrath of abrasive leaders. It is also dedicated to leaders who have been accused of bullying. I hope this book will help you identify and access your blind spots and encourage you to seek help so that you can stop the hurt. A third dedication goes to the leaders who are committed to creating positive, bully-free work environments, but do not know where to begin. It is my hope, it is my dream, it is my aspiration that you will find insights in this book to guide your intervention. I'm reading obviously from Ngao's book, but you are fortunate today that you've got the author, the esteemed, experienced Ngao here as well. Before we start, Sis Ngao, can you please tell us and unpack for us what really is bullying? So can you please tell us and define and unpack for us what exactly is bullying, and what are some of the behaviors, what are some of the patterns and trends that underlie or define bullying? Over to you, Sissy.
All right, thank you so much, Samkelo. First of all, let me start with the context, starting with the bigger context. And the place where I want to start is, what are the features and forms of bullying, but also what are some of the complexities about bullying. And one of the first one that comes to mind is that bullying is often seen as some kind of a euphemism for intimidation, for discrimination, for sexual harassment. In other words, people often say, and some of the research and the practitioners have said that there seems to be a fine line between bullying, what is bullying, where bullying starts and where bullying ends. Having said that, though, there is something very, very specific about bullying which distinguishes it from other negative acts at work, such as discrimination and harassment, which I've spoken about. And the first one I'd like to talk about is that bullying is behavior that is repeated over time. So if there's some of the few key things before I come to actually defining the specific behaviors, the key features that distinguish bullying from other negative acts at work, one, it is behavior that is repeated over a period of time. In other words, it's persistent. You can immediately see those that work in harassment, because in sexual harassment, for example, even one event can be identified as harassment. The other key feature which distinguishes bullying from other negative acts at work is that it is systematic over time. Because it happens over a period of time, over time, then you begin to see some kind of patterns. Oh, this is what is happening. This is the behavior, especially from the part of the target. You begin to see some kind of a systematic pattern of how this behavior is come about. The other thing which is very clear and has been proven is that bullying is very risky to health, to people that targets health, and one may argue it is also risky to the health of the organization. The next three features which make it different, and I'm starting from broad. I'm using the funnel approach. I'm starting from here, and then I'll then go down to the specific behaviors that constitute bullying. The other three key features are persistence, escalation, and a patterned negative act. So what do I mean by persistence? Is that bullying behavior tends to persist because mainly for the mere reason that it happens over time. And over that period, when it is reported, and because typically when bullying is reported, nothing gets done about it, it then escalates. In other words, the bullying becomes worse and you become targeted, and it becomes horrible. And of course, the last one that I spoke about is that you start to see the patterns of the negative behavior, which then speaks to the tactics that bullies, abrasive leaders who bully, use. So then what are these behavior? There are two, if you like, sets of behaviors. The first set is the behavior that is covert. In other words, behavior that you can see, that everybody can see. And typically these happen in public. For example, abusive language, shouting and throwing things at people, demeaning and shutting down the targets. So this is the behavior that is typically very, almost like clear cut. And then you have other types of behavior, which is much more problematic and complex, which is covert, because, this is the kind of behavior that actually oftentimes would leave the target quite confused as to what is exactly happening here. Examples include manipulation. Typical example, you're on leave and your manager says, hey, I need this, and I need for you to do this for me very soon. If you respond and say, hey, but Miss or Mr. Manager, I'm on leave, can this not wait until I come back? And the return is almost like a guilty playing. Oh yeah, you can't do this yet. You spend so much time doing your private things. I give you, time to go fetch your son or daughter and things like that. The other common one is the withholding of information. You have been given a task, a project, and there's critical information that is central to you doing your work and achieving that job. Yet you are not given all the information or access to the information that you require. The other is also being excluded, similar to withholding information, and these are the type that are covert and which make some of the identification of bullying or defining of bullying problematic is being excluded. Everybody is invited to something that is critical, again, central to you doing your work, and then you are not, you are excluded. So these are some of the behaviors which are constituted as bullying behavior. And these, what I have just described, are typically behavior that happens either, interpersonally between peers, for example, or from a manager to the target. But bullying can also happen at an organizational level. And some of the factors that make bullying happen is precisely when the leader, the biggest leader, is the biggest bully themselves. And how does that come about? It usually is somebody with a commanding style, commanding autocratic style, and they get results through this way. And there's a concept that I also speak about called leadership shadow. When a leader behaves in a certain way, before you know it, the same behavior cascades throughout the organization. So everybody, essentially, you know, of the adage that people do what you do, not what you say. And of course, other factors, other forms of bullying at the institutional level, how it comes about is through the abuse, for example, of processes, of legal processes. Every time you are being asked, the tendency is, you know, a threat to with insubordination. I'm going to put you under disciplinary procedure, and sometimes even carrying out clandestine behavior. So I know it was quite a mouthful, and I'm going to stop at this point. But just to say that I just wanted to provide the context and also examples of behavior that is constituted as bullying.
Yeah, but what is amazing about what you have done, you've given clarity. You said it's endemic, it's systematic, also it's over time as well. It also can come across, I'm trying to bring those who join later, also it can come across as exclusion as well. Just also you mentioned manipulation. Am I right that sometimes even when they phone you while you are on leave, he or she might be, the line manager might begin the sentence by saying, I know that you are on leave, sorry for this call. So in that way, he or she appears as though they are on your side, but they're also phoning you on leave. And then secondly, Ngao, if I may ask, exclusion, can it also mean information being withheld from you, data, insights, reports that you need to do your work being withheld from you, not being copied on an email, important file and all of that?
Absolutely. It's that and exclusion also, it's exactly what you're describing, but it can also be exclusion or blocking to access to training. Because often what happens is, just yesterday, I was at a client and facilitating a session, and one of the participants said, just by being at this workshop, I'm in trouble because I have been told that I see that you are attending these types of workshops. If you do, know that you are going to be marked. So some of it is being not being given access to opportunities, or if you go anyway, being threatened about being marked. And the example, I like giving examples so that we are much clearer.
Please do. Yes.
So example of not being given access to opportunities. Because I'm your manager, by virtue of being your manager, when you apply for training or anything, I'm the person that must sign off. So there's always going to be any reasons why you can't go on training or any other opportunities, by way of example.
No, excellent. No, thank you. And I'm going to move on to the next question. By the way, Sis Ngao, we've had lots of questions from the audience. In total, we had about 26 questions from the audience. So we won't read all of them. Some people, they did register, but I think maybe where there was load shedding, they forgot to write the questions that they would send here. Some of the interesting questions that have come, in order to answer them now, Sis Ngao, is what is the best reprimand for bullying? Another one was, how do I handle bullying from my executive manager? And another one, how do I handle bullying if it's coming from a CEO or managing director? Now, just to go to a question that I would like you to answer is, in your book, you say there are 3 players in a bullying scenario. I like the use of the word players. Some of us were Kaizer Chiefs and Paris fan, but I don't think you're talking about those. But also, what are these scenarios and what role do they play?
Thanks. I will go to that. Before I answer that, and because this is more interactive, and as a good OD consultant, I'd like to answer people's questions. So some of the ones that you have said, and you're in control which questions I should answer, but I'd like to answer those questions, please, if I may. But so the three players in bullying are typically the bully. And you'll hear me more and more talking about or referring to them as abrasive leaders that bully. And I do that, and I say that intentionally because language is important and positioning is important. And the reason I call them abrasive leaders that are bullying is that abrasion is a behavior. So it is my belief that with the right support, the behavior can be changed. But anyway, so that's the first player. The second player, again, I refer to as the target. And again, language, I say target, not victim, because you are targeted. And if you view yourself as a target as opposed to being a victim, I believe that the response would be different. The third player, one which we don't talk too much about, is the bystander. The bystander is somebody that is neither targeted nor the bully, but essentially is the person that experiences, that witnesses bullying, and bystanders by the very nature of the word presupposes that says that people watch and witness and don't do anything about it. So the bully or the abrasive leader that bully is the person that is the perpetrator, somebody that commits the bullying, and the target is the person that's on the receiving end of the bullying.
Excellent. No, that's fine. Thank you. I like your feedback to say, let's also give some answer some of the questions that are mentioned here. I'm going to just state one question. Where do you report if the bully is the final person in the company? What if the bully is the CFO, is the MD, or is my HR director? How should I navigate or report that? Because the person bullying is somebody senior in authority.
Yeah. So there's one of two things that can happen. So the fact that you're asking that question, I'm assuming that you don't have processes and procedures in place to report. Why I say that, in some of the work that I do, one of the things, the interventions, one of the areas that I support organizations around is for them to put in place processes and procedures for reporting bullying. And that includes appointing champions and investigators and training of those people in terms of how they receive the reports and all that. In the case where your main, your line manager, the big boss, is the bully, I would typically advise my clients to have the process where the investigation is done by somebody externally, in order to have to try to maintain the objectivity. Otherwise, what would happen is that people inside would be influenced and would be afraid to investigate the big boss. If none is the option, both the scenarios that I have described is not an option, one of the things that I usually say, which speaks to what to do when you are bullied, in the book, or you know, there's some tools there where I invite targets to really document, because it is very important for you to document, to have records of all the what has been happening, and in the event that things get so bad that you have to go to litigation. So it's important to keep records of everything that has been occurring, and then you can, if the options that I've spoken about are not available for you, then you can seek professional help externally.
Okay, wonderful. And then just two more questions, shorter ones linked to this question. And then if you don't mind, Sis Ngao, can we please open up to the audience after you've answered these two questions, that people can also raise questions from their side. I'm also conscious that we are running a session where it's supposed to be free and open, yet it's me and you bullying and just having a discussion. So I'm going to ask two short questions, and then anyone from the audience, whether you are in Botswana, and yes, if you're in Botswana, please do send us some diamonds, or you're in Kampala, or Mbare in Uganda, or whether you are in Nairobi, Kisimu, Homa Bay, Abuja, Lagos, we're going to allow you to raise your hand. Oliver is on the background, and so you can ask a question. So linked to the one, if the bully is my boss, in the first part of your book, you write that as you are driving home, you begin to wonder what has just happened to me or what is going on. You go so far as to Google, Sis Ngao, is it possible to be a victim, to be a recipient of bullying and not know about it? That's my first question. Two, could I be the bully and not know that I'm actually the bully?
Absolutely, especially because in the continent, in the African continent, we don't talk a lot about bullying, and a lot of work has not been done about bullying, work in terms of research and awareness raising. So it is very, very possible to be bullied and not be aware that you are being bullied, and mainly because the abrasive leaders that bully tend to be very, very politically savvy, organizationally politically savvy, and many would couch it under the guise of performance or being a tough manager. So it's not unusual for the abrasive leaders that I end up working with, and those that I get into coaching relationship with, to say, I'm not a bully, I am a tough manager. So yes, it's possible for you to be bullied, especially if the tactics and the manner, the tactics the bully uses are the much more subtle ones, the manipulative ones. That there's the subtle ones. It is possible, and also it is possible for you to be a bully without being aware that you are a bully. Because what happens in organizations is organizations value and reward performance. And many of the people that bully tend to be, quote unquote, good performers. They meet their targets, and maybe they have got very strong relations externally, and they're very important to the organization. So what happens is that, when they're reported, the company tends to look at the other way because you are, quote unquote, a star performer. But also the other thing, which makes someone to actually be a bully and not be aware, is because it's due to social conditioning in the corporates of today. Because there's so much pressure, to do more with less. And then when you do achieve, we actually reward you, we overlook the other things. So by doing that, it's almost like the organization is actually saying, you're doing all right. There is nothing that you need to change. So yes, on both sides.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. We're now going to open up to the audience. Those of you who've just joined late, we've started the session with Ngao introducing herself and myself, and she put a nice context of what bullying is, answered some questions in terms of the level of bullying and how it manifests itself in organizations as well. And we give over to the audience. Anyone who's got a question, if you don't mind, please raise your hand, and then you can go ahead and ask your question. Oliver, I don't see the hand, so you can go ahead and let us know who's going to be asking the question.
Thank you so much. I'm just waiting for some folks to raise their hands. Otherwise, just go ahead and unmute yourself. ask your question, or even provide a provocation or your own experience. That is perfectly acceptable as well. Over to the audience.
So in my other life, whilst you're still thinking, I'm a lecturer, and lecturers tend to just point to call a name. So Masha and Ginger, you've just saved us.
Yeah. Masha and Ginger, please go ahead. And thank you for raising your hand. Masha, do you want to start?
Okay, I can start. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've been listening closely. Lots to take out of this conversation. I just wanted to ask a quick question regarding the type of bullying that comes in the form of abusive language when you have senior members of teams using four-letter words in meetings that really intimidates the team. How do you handle such situations without seeming to be not progressive or you know, we tend to sweep that under the rug, yet it's not a good way to run a team.
Thanks, Masha. Yeah, that's a very good, interesting question. First of all, the way to answer it is how I would approach it, and obviously everybody else is different. But this is what I would do, and I would invite you to explore doing. The first thing is again, I spoke about the importance of language, and you can only refer in this context that you've just said. I would say something like, so and so, when you use language like that, it makes me feel this, which is different to I don't like or hate, or this language is doing this, that, or the other. So the point I'm trying to make is you would, depending on how you approach it, there's a fine line of getting over judgment, almost like when you say this, or this language is this, that, or the other. What you have control over is just simply stating and informing somebody, when you say this, this is how it lands with me. This is the impact it lands. This is what it means for me. This is how it makes me feel, which is a different nuance to, and again, doing that respectfully. And you are essentially defining, explaining how that makes you feel, how it lands for you. And nobody but you knows how it feels or lands for you. Not sure if that helps, Masha, if it makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Would that be in private, or do you raise it in the group setting?
My philosophy is the best way to attend to anything is to attend to it in the context or in the system that it was raised. Because what happens is that's also part of what is problematic. Something would happen in a setting, and you keep quiet, and you only raise it outside. So as a rule, as a principle, not a rule, I tend to, it's almost like similar to feedback. For feedback to be effective, give it in as close to the event that it happened as possible. However, you know, again, every situation might be different. It is up to, you would know best whether to provide the feedback or immediately or afterwards. But as a principle, there's a principle that I am inviting to have a look at and apply and see how it works for you.
Excellent. And then the other person who had the question was Ginger. Over to you, Ginger, and then we'll come to our questions then. Ginger, your question.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Your sound is clear. It's like you're in Cape Town.
Good afternoon. My question was relating to these new cell phone apps where you can give instant recognition to people and do performance ratings or comments on a regular basis. And as good as they are, so you can give instant recognition and tell somebody well done on your app. I've also heard them being misused, and where, several colleagues will sort of gang up and give negative ratings about a person or rate them in a social situation and not the work situation. So I just wonder if you've come across anything like that, and, do these, as much as technology helps us, do we have to monitor these kinds of things, or do you have any thoughts about that? Thanks.
Thanks, Ginger. First of all, I have to plead ignorance. I'm not aware of that. So of the app that you're referring to, giving instant feedback. So I am not aware of it and would not have a view and opinion. The only thing that I could say, which is the flip side of what you refer to, is that if the feedback is not great, then it's instant, and I don't know the extent to which everybody can see it, whether the feedback, I would imagine, goes to many people. So it reminds me of, in the context of what we're talking about, workplace bullying, the role of technology, because what happens now is that we all on WhatsApp, there's a WhatsApp group for everything at work. And then, so what it means is if there's abuse, if there's bullying, what it means is that the bullying happens at a speed, lightning speed. And when you also think about emails, the extent and the reach, you might not even know how many people it reaches, because there's this interesting concept called blind copying. You get abused, bullied by email, copying 100 people that have got no business to be copied in. And over and above that, there are also a lot of people that are blind copied. And what we tend to do sometimes, people, when this happens, you forward it. So what technology does is essentially make sure that it spreads the abuse and the bullying at a lightning speed, and the reach is much, much more wider.
Well done, Masha and Ginger, for those questions.
There's
I would
Ruben.
like to come to this issue.
There's Ruben. I don't know if you give Ruben his.
I'll allow Ruben, and he'll be the last one, and then we'll just go back to the question. Ruben, over to you, if you don't mind, sir. Please go ahead, Ruben.
Good afternoon. Hi, Doc.
Ruben, you owe me. I spoke for you, so.
I've got the book, Doc, so I've paid my dues.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
No, thanks, much appreciated. Yeah, I just wanted to find out, Doc, because I think when you started, or somewhere in the question, you mentioned that you might be in a position where you're being bullied, but you're not aware. And I think there was a statement also that can you be a bully also and not be aware? And if yes, if we've got bullies out there because of social conditions and whatever the way they were brought up, they are involved in a bullying activities which they are not aware of. How do we, or how does the book contribute maybe to that awareness, to a point that they become aware of it, and when they do it, then they are kind of aware of the impact that they could be having on the second person?
Yeah, very, very good question, Ruben. Yes, the book does address that. I just don't remember the exact page, but I do know that where on the players, on the bullies, there's a page where I ask specific questions, self-assessment questions, and I ask everybody to, questions like, have you been this? Is it easy for people to give you feedback? And so there's a series of questions that I ask, which might help somebody to both first self-assess whether they can they may be bullies or not. And at the end of the book, there are two tools. One is for specifically to your question, a self-assessment to look at whether or not you might have the propensity to bully as a leader. And then the other tool, which I've borrowed with permission from a colleague, is an assessment of the target to essentially make sure that am I really being bullied? Is what is happening bullying? So yes, there are tools at the back of the book, but throughout the book, also inside the book with a series of self-assessment questions. Thanks, Ruben.
Thanks. Oh, that's a very good question on your side, Ruben. Assistant Ngao, I'd like to come to two themes. The first one is going to be the one about bystanders. And then I'm going to dwell deep on human resources, HR, and its role. You maintain a strong view that there is no such thing as a bystander. Could you please explain what do you mean that in this process, in this painful, toxic environment of bullying, you're saying, hang on, no one is a bystander. Please explain that and unpack that for us.
So what I say is that there is no such thing as an innocent bystander. Innocent, because by witnessing something and not do something, you are not innocent. And by implication it means for me that you are complicit. You are enabling the bullying to happen and to continue. Having said that, though, I have, through, again, just my research and experience in consulting in organizations, as bystanders, I understand it's a very, very difficult place to be in. The typical thing is, I'm just going to stay out of it. I'm just happy. Look at how horrible it is. I'm just happy that it's not happening to me. So what I usually then say is, have you ever thought about what if it was you in those shoes and everybody just looked and looked away? And the other thing is that not intervening in one way or the other does not guarantee that the bully might turn on you the next time. So today's bystander is potentially tomorrow's target, because it does not acting does not preclude you from being targeted. But the most important thing really is that and you can do as smallest thing as just distracting the bully, and one of those might be just checking on the fellow person, particularly if the bullying is the one where you are being shouted at, the person is being shouted at, demeaned, and whatnot. It might just take a small gesture of just going to the target and saying, are you all right? Or something like that, just to distract the target. This is why I believe that, there is no such thing as an innocent bystander. You are complicit by not doing anything. That does not mean I do not understand the potential of you being targeted, because people stay out of it out of fear of being targeted, and also part of the manipulation that is being used by is more threats, threatening to the target, say, you better keep quiet otherwise. So people tend to stay away.
I just want us to think that what you're saying is that by me not doing something, there is no guarantee that tomorrow I actually might suffer that bully behavior. I might suffer those experiences as well. So maybe being quiet and being silent, I risk that tomorrow it might be done to me. My rebuttal and my retort, and please bear with me, the person who's bullying happens to be my manager, happens to be my director. Somehow in June or in December, he or she will do my performance review, and my increase is linked to that.
This is what perpetuates the bystander. In fact, if you want to take it globally, this is what's wrong with the world in a sense, because people tend to be, and it's, yes, you can do that, but it's short-termism, and this, it's not sustainable. But what you're also contributing is you somehow contributing to a culture where bullying behavior thrives, because nobody's going to speak about it. And again, somewhere in the book, I talk about the importance of voice, employee voice. So employee voice, and I talk about two types of voices, the employee voice and the organizational voice. So it is important. One of the things that is a catalyst to building a psychologically safe environment is a situation where people feel free to voice their concerns, to provide feedback, even to challenge the status quo without feeling without feeling fear or of being retaliation. So employee voice is very important. And I do understand that employees cannot just of themselves voice, because when in a vacuum, so which speaks to the second type of voice, which is the organizational voice. And the organizational voice being what processes, policies, and procedures do you have that enable or begin to make employees feel safe to raise their voice, to raise their concerns and fears.
Yeah, Amara Oguchukwu has read our minds. He wants us to talk about human resources. HR are the only people who come to any business for humans, for the men and women who work there. Our friends in IT who are Scrum Masters or developers come for framework and systems. Our friends in finance look at budgets. So what does your research and experience say about human resources in bullying? But before you answer that, what if HR itself are the ones who are being bullied? What if I work in HR and I'm being bullied? And once you've answered that, what does your research say about HR in the journey or in the process of bullying?
A very good question. I expected somebody to ask that. So HR is in an interesting position. It's almost like people talk about hamburger feedback. So there's the meat in between the buns. You know, HR kind of sits there in a way. On the one side, on the one continuum, employees do not trust HR because they see and they perceive HR to be with management. On the other hand, HR also can and are often bullied by management, by the bullies, especially around, you know, when they want their things and they want HR to expedite or to overlook the processes and policies and in order for them to get what they want. So the HR oftentimes find themselves in this middle area scenario where they're untrusted by employees and where they're also can be bullied by leaders and can even be bullied by colleagues in HR itself. So that is the scenario. How then? What role can HR then play to get themselves out of this situation and for them to be true people and culture champions? I believe they can play a very crucial role in developing what I spoke about earlier, the organizational voice, in partnering with leaders in providing that organizational voice, which is important for employee voice or the individual voice to be able to be prominent. How can they do that? One of the things is the first step is policies. I know, you know, there's, but in this case, I'm talking about anti-bullying, specific anti-bullying policies, and then put in place processes and procedures. What should people do if they suspect being bullied? What should people do if they see someone being bullied? And write those down, and as we say in our language, socialize them throughout the organization. But over and above that, earlier on I spoke about identifying champions. Who are those champions? And train the champions, because one of the things, you could do more harm if you put certain people as the champions, as people, you know, the kinds of people people should go to report, and they are insensitive. They are insensitive to people that come to report, because I can tell you this, it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage for anybody to stand up and to actually speak up. So those are some of the things I think HR could do. Some of the things HR is already doing. You have annual employee engagement surveys, you've got those kinds of things, but perhaps the thing is the crafting of the questions, because we often never think about that, because we take whatever survey we can get because somebody said it's best practice and it's already designed, without looking at context. How relevant is it for the context within which I'm operating? So part of it might also be creating that. And also you could create employee voice or individual voice through focus groups. Have annual focus groups and little practices that that are unthreatening in the beginning. And these days everybody talks about town halls. You know, just put that into. You start by small questions, unthreatening questions. Once people get used to asking what the questions, you start migrating and putting the question into you really questions that matter.
What I like about your feedback and your synthesis is that you start at a high level, but also you give practical things that others speak to, focus groups, to town hall policies, anti-bullying policies. But also you then say, let us also be very careful and not put men and women to be responsible to listen to this, to assist if they themselves have not been trained. Ngao, I hear that Oliver has got people who've got questions. So I'm going to hand over to Oliver to take over now. Over to you. And then when we come back, we're just going to allow you to read a passage from your book, because I'm conscious of the time as well. Over to you, Oliver.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really important question here. How do you help people who have been conditioned by their regional culture to not even recognize certain acts as bullying? That was the first one. The other one was more a statement. I think in the current economic climate, with high unemployment rates, it's difficult for individuals to speak out on bullying, particularly from senior members of staff. We all fear the repercussions. Speaking out is not without consequences.
That is so true. I mean, the statement is true. That is some of the things that I have said before attest to that. There's a lot of people are in pain, and they tolerate the pain and the abuse and the bullying because of fear of losing jobs, because they're breadwinners and things like this. How can we then, how can we address that? One of the things I say is starting by just awareness raising, webinars like these. I know this is a mini webinar and there's so much that is not covered, but it can just start by awareness raising and, having a common or shared understanding of what bullying is and what it is not. And in terms of what could be done, how can employers and leaders intervene? So that could be a starting point. And of course, doing and deepening much more as from the awareness raising. The other question, the first question, if I remember correctly, it's more around social conditioning, if people that bully and it gives them the results. Is that a fair summation of that, Oliver? Okay, great. So the one of the things that I have not spoken about is that I actually work and coach, work with bullies and coach people that have been accused of bullies. Because, and one of the things that I am finding out is that many have got almost little to zero level of self-awareness in terms of the impact that they have in their direct environment. And the principle, the starting point for me is that as far as the social conditioning is concerned, what brought you here? You've probably heard of the adage, what brought you here is not going to take you there, because we live in a different world now where you know, so many things are different. The kinds of things that brought you success are the kinds of things that are actually going to get you in trouble. So in such instances, to break that cycle, what I say often to companies is that they must offer support to the bullies, abrasive leaders, because, and why did I come to that? In the years that I've been doing this work and doing the interventions, I realized that interventions work, but up to a point. But they are not sustainable. And one of the reasons they're not sustainable is that the voice of the bully is not here. Whether we like it or not, you know, it makes much more sense and sustainable sense to include the voice of the bully as part of the solution. And with the correct support and specialized coaching, many do change. Many do change, and things do turn around. But it is, I have to say, it's not an easy thing, but it requires a certain level of maturity and principle on the part of the employer to say, okay, if they really are serious about, because these people tend to be performers, if you want to keep them and still at the same time address the concerns of the employees, that's one of the interventions that could be offered to turn things around.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm aware that when we began this journey, this week planning, you did say that this has been a very busy week for you. So thank you for your opportunity. Thank you for the gifting, and thank you for your time. As we're about to close, I would like to give you a chance to read a passage from your book and just share with us the gift of your experience. We're nearly coming to the end. Thank you for those of you in Uganda, some people joining from Ghana who stayed with us. We see you, Lagos. We see you, Abuja. We see you, Kanu. Those in the Northern Cape, it's not that hot, and the hunting season is coming up. We see you, Gqeberha. We see you, East London as well. Over to you, Ngao, just to read from your book and share with us as well.
Okay, those that have got the book, Ruben, you can go read with me on page 162 if you have the book with you. This really is more around, because I get asked, why do you do what you do? I mean, and that's also part of it. And it reads, despite how difficult my experience was, bullying gave me so much more than I realized, including the ability to evolve my view that all bullies are evil, nasty people. Looking back, after the privilege of being entrusted by several organizations to intervene in this sensitive and emotive subject, I have come to the realization that not all bullies are bullies. Often they have become who they are because of social conditioning around what it takes to get results or to succeed. It's this that has made them employ bullying tactics to get what they need and meet their own deliverables. Through my work, I've had the great honor of seeing that light bulb moment in a leader's eyes as they realize the harm they cause others. This light is usually followed by a comment like, "I had no idea." That's when I know that the coaching is doing what it was meant to do, because no one wants to cause others pain and no one wants to be seen as the reason for others suffering at work. That moment brings me joy and fulfillment. It is what rehumanizing the workplace one leader at a time means for me, because once the leader shifts and changes how they work with people, that positivity tends to cascade through the organization. Or to put it another way, it's akin to removing the ink spewed by an octopus so that the environment becomes clean again. This is the moment the evolution begins. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Sis Ngao. I think you've encouraged all of us to actually go and get our copies and follow what Ruben has done. Any closing remarks, Sis Ngao, as you close, because we have to hand over to Oliver. Any last comments? E.g., you speak about individual, team, organization. Any last comments? Anything? Over to you, Sis Ngao, before I hand over to Oliver.
The only comments, the closing remarks, is just gratitude for everybody that has attended, and the fact that you are here means that you are my tribe. You also believe in this journey of rehumanizing the organization one leader at a time, and removing suffering from the organization. And my parting word is that sometimes it doesn't even have to be big. Just a small gesture, like the one I described, when just reaching out to somebody, "Are you okay?" when they're being screamed down at, might just be enough. But in the words of Samkelo, I wish you strength and and hope that our paths can cross in somewhere in the future. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Asante, Sis Ngao. Friends, colleagues, brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters of the soil, thank you very much for joining this very challenging and sensitive issue. It's on a Friday. As you press that leave button, when you say goodbye, please do say goodbye in your own home language and dialect. Over to Oliver, who's going to close the session now. Asante on my side.
Thank you very, very much. Now, thank you so much, Samkelo, for facilitating today's session. And a big, big thank you to all of our participants. Just a few things from my side before I allow you to enjoy your weekend ahead. Please do give us an evaluation of this particular webinar in the chat by just rating it out of 5, with 1 being very poor and 1 being excellent. Please just give us that number and any other feedback that you would like to. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. And then just to say, we urge you to continue contributing discussions on our APAG HR WhatsApp group. On that WhatsApp group, it is discussions like this that give us the signals and the impetus to put together mini webinars, mini sessions, opportunities for us to get together as a forum to discuss the burning issues of the day and what is going on for us. So I will send you all a follow-up email just with details on how to access Ngao's book. And I will also send you a recording for this particular session so that you may enjoy it afterwards. And I will also leave details in terms of how to get in touch with both Ngao as well as Samkelo. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend, and we look forward to speaking to you very soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Tonana.